Imagine someone from the NHS, a nurse, reviewing a whole army. I mean, it's hysterical. And yet this happens all the time. My name is Dr. Amanda Goodhall, and my area of research is in what I call expert leadership. It's about organisational heads, and it can be line managers, it doesn't matter. But essentially it's about having bosses who really understand the core business of the organisation. So it's the opposite to someone who's come in, who's jumped around from different kinds of organisations, or someone who doesn't really have enough experience in that particular field. My research would suggest that that isn't the kind of boss you want at the head of your organisation. I work with a number of leaders in different organisations, and then for a few years I worked with university leaders. Who should lead research universities? Should they essentially be good researchers or good managers? And that's where I first discovered this idea of expert leadership, that actually the best heads of universities were people who had done extraordinary work in their research. If you look at places like Stanford, if you look at Silicon Valley, all of these are run by people who are outstanding experts. Those universities that were led by outstanding researchers were far more likely to improve in their performance. So I decided to put the same research question to many different kinds of organisational settings. If you want to be an outstanding basketball coach, does it matter if you play to a very high standard? And it turns out that it does. It was the all-stars, the best players, who also made the best coaches. So what is it about expert bosses? Firstly, this is not an elitist thing. In actual fact, it doesn't matter where you work in an organisation. It could be a janitor in a hospital who's stopping people from getting infected. Their expert knowledge is just as important as a hairdresser. I want someone who knows what they're doing when I go and get my hair done, especially when I go and get my hair done, actually. So if you took your car and the guy or the woman who owned the garage said, the engineers are not around at the moment, but I've got a great couple of painters and decorators, do you mind if they work on your car? You'd be quite shocked. And yet, for some reason, we allow governments and organisations to put total inexperts in charge of things. This was also supplemented by a kind of democratisation of information. On social media, for example, if I make an opinion about driving a car, no one can tell whether I know more than anybody else. My opinion is kind of equalised, and that's a problem. The people that shout the loudest often get heard. Differentiating expert knowledge from just kind of anyone's opinion becomes very, very difficult to do. The UK is particularly bad at putting non-experts in place. If you work in the NHS, you've had review after review after review, and nearly all of them are done by non-medics. One done by the head of Marks and Spencer's, barely mentioned clinicians. There's one by a former army officer. Imagine someone from the NHS, a nurse, reviewing a whole army. I mean, it's hysterical. And yet this happens all the time. Governments don't really like experts, because if you're governed by ethics, by standards that your profession demands of you, and that means that if a government comes along and says, we want you to do this, and it contravenes your own values and your own professional codes of practice, you're going to say no. So they don't like this. So what they do is they bring in people who are just yes men and women. Research changes the world. It changes the world all the time, and it has to continue to be funded. If we want to create mini Silicon Valleys, the only way we can do that is by funding brilliant research and by funding brilliant researchers.